Hello and welcome. Thank you for everyone joining us today. We are here to talk about everything matching, which is one of our favorite subjects. My name is Susan Taylor, and I am the Surrogate Program Manager here at Fairfax Surrogacy. I am also a two-time gestational surrogate, and I'm a licensed midwife. I am joined today by Julie. Would you like to give a little more introduction about yourself, Julie?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Julie Mazzina. I'm a case manager here at Fairfax Surrogacy. My background is in social work and case management, and I'm really excited to be here to talk to you all.
Awesome. So we're gonna dive right in. But if you have questions along the way, we invite you to ask. We'll start with just some of our most commonly asked questions to get started until we get some feedback from everyone. So I would say the number one question that I get asked by surrogates is, can I choose my intended parent? And the answer is yes, absolutely. Both parties get to choose each other. And while we do a little bit of the matchmaking on our end, it's entirely up to the surrogates and the intended parents who they want to work with. Julie, do you hear this question too from intended parents?
I do, and I think the intended parents are always interested in hearing our process and how they are presented with profiles. So we do present our surrogates first with any intended parent profiles for them to view. And then if the surrogate is interested, we'll present the intended parents with the surrogate's profile.
We'll get into that a little bit more in depth as we go. And then the second, I would say close second that I get asked, and I'm sure even this might even be your number one question, Julie, but for me, with dealing with our surrogates, it's the second question. But how long does it take to be matched? I get asked that all the time. And like I said, I'm sure Julie gets asked that a lot more than I do as she works with our intended parents. But for surrogates, it's usually very fast. We have intended parents waiting, and there's always going to be intended parents waiting. Most often, our surrogates are matched once they complete our pre screening process and they are accepted into our program. It can take a bit longer for some, depending on matching preferences. And we're always upfront with this with our surrogates when we're working with them. If there's anything that we see that may delay the matching process for them, we have that conversation ahead of time. But on average, our surrogates are matched by the time they complete their pre pregnancy lab work and their psychological evaluation. Julie, is that your number one question?
Yes, that is a very popular question we get asked. And it really, I like to tell the intended parents, it's really going to depend on their personal criteria that they're looking for in a surrogate. It also can depend on the specific fertility clinic that they are working with, because some clinics do have certain requirements as well.
Mhm.
So we just let them know that up front, so that they're aware there are just certain criteria that are going to affect who they match with as well.
Yeah, it really is on matching is a delicate process because it's not just what the surrogate prefers and what the intended parents prefer, but then, yeah, we have to take in that consideration of the fertility clinic that the intended parents are working with because they all have their own set of criteria as well. And so you have to look at the full picture for sure.
Mhm.
So talking about that, I said that we do some matchmaking on our end, and that's a part of it is looking at what the fertility clinic is needing also from both parties and how involved we are in the matching process is pretty common question that we get asked. And so I want to go over that a little bit more on how we really deem who would be matchable with who. And so for surrogates, I know for us, when we first meet with our surrogates during a virtual meeting, we discuss all the matching options that they have because most of them have no idea that they even have all these options. Like, do you want to work with a heterosexual couple, a single mom or dad? Would you prefer a same sex couple? Are you open to an international couple? Do you prefer that they're domestic? Do you want them to be local to you? How many embryos do you want to transfer? Are you open to one, two embryos? Communication. How involved do you want the parents to be throughout the journey and after the journey? Do you want them to be attending appointments with you? Do you want them to be in there for the birth? Are you hoping for a friendship after the baby's here? And of course, the biggest one is your feelings on termination. What scenarios are you comfortable with the intended parents choosing to terminate the pregnancy? So those are all things that we cover with our surrogates. And then, of course, we consider what the intended parents want and what the fertility clinic is going to allow. Julie, do you have that same discussion with your intended parents in the beginning?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like Susan said, there's so many different things to think about for the matching process. It's not necessarily just where their surrogate lived or their relationship status. There's so many other items that we like to find out from the intended parents. And initially, they may not know the answer right away. So we like to take the time to really go through all the different preferences and items that they can really think about to make sure that they absolutely know exactly what they would like and make sure it helps allow us to find the perfect surrogate for them as well.
I think sometimes too, it even just takes, I know for our surrogates, what they think they want in the very beginning changes.
Mm.
It changes throughout the process. It changes as they get to know more about the process, understand how often they'll have to travel, when they'll travel, where they'll travel. And I think sometimes even, and probably for intended parents, seeing actual profiles, because that just makes it real at that point. And I know our surrogates a lot of times will sometimes they'll open up matching preferences, sometimes they pull it in a little bit. But I think a lot of it is just when they actually see a real profile for the first time and see this is really happening and there's real people on the other side of this journey. And I see matching preferences change a lot at that point too.
Absolutely. I've seen the same as well, where they initially go in with a certain set of criteria. And like you said, they end up potentially expanding it or the preferences they had at the beginning, they end up actually selecting a surrogate and saying that they aren't as perhaps strict on particular criteria that they thought, because it is really, we want them to have a personal relationship with their surrogate. And that day is most important. And so sometimes all the other little criteria that they initially had kind of go out the window because they just really like viewing the surrogate's profile. And that's all it takes sometimes is something in their profile they see that they really love.
Yeah. What are, you kind of touched on this a little bit ago, and we'll talk about more of like how the matching process actually works and talking about viewing profiles and all that. Like you said, our surrogates will see profiles for the intended parent. And if it may not be exactly what they're looking for, we do take all those aspects that we talked about of how many embryos they want to transfer and if they want somebody local. But sometimes we get to know personalities on each side and we know like these would be such a great match. And maybe she's not exactly what you thought, or maybe they're not exactly who you thought you'd be working with. But take a look. And if we're open, I know for me, when I share profile, if you want to pass, it's not exactly what you were hoping for, that's totally fine. But most cases, they realize that is exactly because a lot of it, I really think while we go through the little details, and of course, termination needs to line up and the number of embryos you want to transfer needs to line up, and the surrogate has to meet the requirements of the fertility clinic. But really, at the end of the day, it's all about personalities, right? I mean, that's what's matching, I think, at the end of the day. There's the little things that they have to line up on. But for the most part, I think everybody is really reading the profiles and getting a sense of who the other party is and how they can see because you're spending at minimum an entire year really together on this journey. And so we want compatibility and hopefully friendship and communication, all that. And so um I feel like when we share those profiles, sometimes it's just us knowing this isn't exactly what you're thinking, but just because we've been doing this for so long, I think this is who you really want to be working with. And I know, so when I share profiles, we always give them the option, of course, of passing or finding out more. Sometimes we get follow up questions that will have to come to the case managers to get those answers about the intended parent. And then we share the surrogate's profile with the case manager for you to share with your intended parents. And I know you guys a lot of times get questions back from your parents about follow-ups of things they've seen in the profile and wanting to know more information. And then if everybody wants to move forward, then that's when we do the match meeting and we schedule that. And you mostly host our match meetings as the case manager. All of our case managers host the match meetings so that all parties get to know you because you're going to guide them throughout the journey. What can both the surrogate and the intended parents expect during the match meeting?
Yeah, the match meeting is honestly a really exciting part of my job. I love doing them because it's the first opportunity that the surrogate and the parents are meeting face to face. If they live locally, I've had that done match meetings actually in person, which is even more exciting. But I just told them that, this your first time meeting them. I like to say that it's almost kind of like a first date. We're all meeting for the first time, getting to know one another. Um, I'm very transparent, to let them know everyone might feel a little nervous at first, but we make it a very liked and comfortable process. Um, I like that both parties have viewed each other's profiles. So it's really an opportunity to ask just some more questions, get to know one another. But this up until this point, they've just been reading information about one another. And it's just an opportunity for us to discuss not only each other's personal backgrounds and what brought them to surrogacy, but also just their what they're interested in throughout the journey. And we'll get into it a little bit as well regarding like their communication and how they would just like to foresee the journey going along the way. So it's a really exciting uh, part of my job. And they all go on very smoothly. And at the end of the meeting, I think that everyone just feels so comfortable and are really excited to move on to the next step.
Yeah, I love match meetings. I love hearing about them. I get so excited, and when you get to participate in them, it's just so neat to see everybody finally coming together and seeing that very first interaction as the journey gets going. And I know for us, we our surrogates are always really nervous because, like you said, it's like a first date. And I tell people a lot, it's almost like a dating app. You're going to look at profiles and let's swipe right or left, and then you're going to meet, and it is nerve wracking. And I can remember my own personal journeys meeting my intended parents for the first time and being so nervous. And so one of the things that we do to help both sides is we give tips on how to prepare for the meeting. And I know for our surrogates, the biggest thing that we say is just try to relax and enjoy it. It's the first time that you're going to meet people that you're probably going to match with and embark on this incredible journey with. So, you know, just be open and listen. And some of the tips that we give to be able to do that is, we surrogates are moms, right? So they have little ones running around. And so we do recommend that our surrogates have a babysitter or a family friend or somebody designated that can kind of hang out with the little ones while you're meeting with your intended parents, and have your partner present so everybody can get to know each other. Be in a quiet space and a place where you can just fully engage and interact with each other. And then, like you said, have questions available. You've read their profile, things. Is there anything on that profile that you like more information about? Are do you want more information about what kind of communication? Maybe they're international. And so you want to know how often will you be able to come over? Are you planning on traveling at any point during the pregnancy? Are there any things that you want me as a surrogate to share with you throughout the process? Do you want regular updates about the doctor's appointments or bump photos of the belly growing and things like that? And so that's what we always tell our surrogates is one, just have fun, and two, have a space where you can pay attention and listen and get to know each other. And then three, have some questions ready and to be able to get to know each other better. What is there anything specific that you like to recommend to the parents to prepare for this also?
I just really recommend to them, just really take the time to just kind of, go in a quiet space, think about just anything that really is meaningful to them and questions that they might have for their surrogate. Every intended parent is different. So I just tell them that something that may be important to one intended parent may be different to another. And so just out of kind of everything, you know, what is most meaningful to you and are you looking for in your surrogate? And, you know, again, like communication, we just like to go over, if there's certain preferences they have, if they're more comfortable, for example, texting with their surrogate versus email, we want to feel comfortable sharing that. There's no judgment in these batch meetings. We just want them to fully have them feel and be themselves and not feel pressured at all to say a different answer just because they think their surrogate may like them better. Just be completely honest and uh, again, just relax as much as possible and just feel comfortable sharing as much of themselves as they're comfortable sharing with their surrogate, because that's really what's going to help them match as best as possible.
Mhm. I love that. And I think you're right with be honest and be transparent and try not to be nervous. And I say this to surrogates, I'm like, they're just as nervous as you are. Like they are hoping that you choose them also, just as much as you're hoping that they want to work with you and that they saw your profile and think that you're going to be kind and responsible and this amazing person to get to do what I think is one of the most noble things ever and honorable in a sense of like, thank you for letting me, thank you for letting me carry your baby and trusting me with something so monumental. But they're also thinking that same thing. I feel like intended parents are just as hopeful that this is the woman that is going to help them create or grow their family. And they're just as nervous. And, we talk about a lot about how well it goes, which it does. I mean, usually by the time, because I think one of the reasons which we'll touch on this a little bit is our profiles are so comprehensive. I think that's why our matches are so good. And just because we also pour, I think, our heart and souls into matching our surrogates and our intended parents. But what if they do that match meeting and they don't want to move forward? Do they have to? Do you tell your intended parents that they have to choose that surrogate when they move forward?
No, we absolutely tell them that, we want them to feel as most comfortable, after the match meeting. Like you said, fortunately, we've had very successful match meetings. And after post meetings, they're immediately sending me a message saying we absolutely love their surrogate. We do move forward. But, if there is any questions after the meeting or any follow up questions they need me to talk to either the surrogate, follow up with the agency on, we absolutely tell them that we can do that. But like I said, fortunately, we haven't had that. But no, we're going to make sure that, all parties are absolutely in agreement, and completely comfortable moving forward. But like you said, we cover so many aspects of what both parties are interested in looking for ahead of time so that when we do present profiles, we've been able to really successfully match, couples together. So it's really
Yeah,
great.
definitely no pressure. If you decide, usually the match meeting is kind of like the final seal of approval of wanting to move forward. But for sure, if there's anything that comes up, we're happy to rematch and to look at other options and to address concerns before moving forward. We got a question about what comes after the match meeting. So, on your end, what does it look like once the match meeting is over?
Yeah, so in the max meeting, I do let all parties know that after the meeting, I will be sending both the surrogate their, if they have a partner, as well as the intended parent, and if they have a partner, match agreements. And so they're basically just reviewing that and deciding that they are in agreement to move forward with each other. And after that point, we will work towards an official match and the next steps of that process. And we let them know, of course, when both parties have signed and matched. That's a really exciting process, letting them know. Sometimes they both sign like around the same time exactly. And that's even more exciting when we see that happen. And sometimes they're following up with me and, signing and then asking when's the other one's signing. So that's always a fun part. As well. But yeah, then end up following up with the intended parents clinic because that's kind of the next step is getting the surrogate registered at the fertility clinic to move forward with the next step.
Yeah. Um, I was going to ask you a follow-up question to that, and I just lost my train of thought. So I'll move on, but I do have a follow-up question to that we're going to come back to. Um, so once they do the match agreement, then they transition to case management. They follow up with the fertility clinic. The next step is the medical screening, like you mentioned, and getting on as a patient there. Um,
Yeah,
and
and
so,
I will say too, with like the medical screening, like that's kind of that first stage that we work towards in the process. And we'll be in communication with the clinic. Every clinic is different, but they will reach out directly to the surrogate to get that scheduled, and we'll be in communication with the intended parents as well. And working towards kind of the next steps. And yeah, I mean, in the match meeting, we do go through that process as well. Explain that each intended parents clinic again can be different, a little different in their process. So I do explain that very, just very generally. We don't like to make it an overwhelming process, and just very briefly kind of go through the steps of everything.
I remember my follow-up question. This is what I was thinking about, and 'cause this is the most important. Is this when you exchange everybody's information? This is when the surrogates and the intended parents get to start communicating on their own, right?
Yes. So, after they match, I do send out a message exchanging all contact information, which is really exciting. If the intended parents, for example, are in international couples, sometimes I'll help set up a WhatsApp group just to communicate. But a lot of times they'll start communicating via text, which is really exciting. It just makes, I think, the relationship start out really personally, and they're able to just start texting about even their everyday life. We do encourage that as well throughout the journey. We want it to not just feel like they're only communicating about everything going on with the clinic and the process, but we do encourage, for example, the surrogates to, if they can share with the intended parents stories about their kids, if there's birthday parties, sharing pictures and same with the intended parents. If there's anything going on in their personal lives. We want it to really be a personal relationship and not just feel like the only communication is just about the journey itself. And I also do stress that they are in, frequent communication. We want to make sure that there are going to be parts of the journey that are going to be slower than others. But even during those times, just reaching out and saying hi and how's your week going? Again, just to make it feel personal.
Yeah. I know for me, for my journey, but that was my favorite part was the in between. So once we had the match meeting, we officially matched and we got to start communicating, but we were still going through the medical screening and, because all of that's like a lot of hurry up and wait. You're going to hurry up and you're going to go to medical screen. Then we wait for weeks for results and then legal starts and that can take weeks or months. And then getting your medications and getting the embryo transfer scheduled. I feel like I got to know my intended parents best. I kind of almost feel like upfront because it was before the pregnancy, it was before where all the conversation really started focusing around the pregnancy and sharing updates about that and them asking how I was feeling and how everything was going. I feel like that was a time that time in between the matching and the embryo transfer is really when we established a solid friendship and relationship was upfront. And so I love that that information is shared really right from the beginning so that everybody can just start building that basis for a relationship that's going to hopefully last them forever, long after a baby is born.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, and like even in the vaccines, we'll talk about, like I said, any visits, for example, that the intended parents are interested in coming to, and the surrogates are always very wonderful in saying that they want the intended parents, to really be involved as much as possible, which the intended parents love. And they're able to discuss, depending on the location of where they are, what appointments they're able to attend to. Of course, going to, kind of big appointments like the anatomy scan and the embryo transfer are super exciting, of course, as well as the actual birth. But, again, depending on where they are, sometimes they are able to participate in some of those other appointments, even if it's FaceTime, especially, when the surrogate is getting towards going to their OB, just making them feel as involved as possible, even if it's just a video call for the appointments, sending photos of ultrasounds. We just encourage them to share as much as possible. So they really do feel like they're there throughout
Yeah.
the whole time. So,
And that's the best for us too, is seeing those pictures of the little tiny growing babies. It's so
yeah.
sweet and cute. Well, we're going to be running out of time soon, but I really wanted to touch on one more thing that we get asked a lot about, and then we'll check for any final questions. But the last thing I really want to talk about, because we keep talking about a profile, right? And so I just wanted to make sure we touched on this because the profile is such a huge part of the matching process. So I wanted to give more information on what the profile is and how it's created and how we assist in that. And so I'll go from the surrogate standpoint. A lot of what's in the surrogate's profile is going to be bigger, obviously, because there's so much information that needs to be in there. Um, but most of that information is pulled from the application, like pregnancy history, medical history, their employment, what they do on a daily basis, why they want to be a surrogate, their age, their location, their hobbies, um, everything basically about their personality. We also a lot of questions in the application too about their personalities and things like that. And then we ask them to write a letter to their future intended parents and just kind of elaborating on why they want to be a surrogate and what their daily life looks like so that the intended parents can read that and really understand what it's going to look like for the person who's growing their baby. What is her every day? What does she do on the weekend? What does she do for work? What do her children do? Because that's exciting too to know what activities they're in, and then include photos of you on your own, and include photos of you with your partner and your children, and doing the things that you love to do. And then finally, which we know is hard always for everybody, is recording a video. It's hard to get on a video and be vulnerable and talk about yourself and all that, but really, I feel like that's what brings the profile to life. It's like that final thing before the match meeting when you really get to see them and talk face to face. And it just for I think for intended parents and for the surrogates to hear their voices and to really hear them tell their story just makes it so much more real, so much more personable. And so that's what it looks like for a surrogate's profile and how we help her. And we'll give guidelines too. And I always say, send me as many pictures as you want, and I'll sit through them all. And I will put what I think is the best representation for you together. Write whatever you want in a letter, make it all about yourself and talk about your family and all of that. And we'll give lots of guidelines. And on the video, I'd be happy to record a video, a fake video and show it to you so you know kind of a guideline of what we're looking for. How does that work with you with the intended parents creating their profile?
Yeah, it's very similar. So we also, as well for the profile, ask them to provide some pictures of themselves, as well as write a letter to their surrogate and also prepare a video. And we tell them to really just think of it as if you were telling anyone really about yourself, how would you what would you want them to know? So, for pictures, even if it's including pictures of them doing their favorite hobbies, or pictures of their family, if they're have a really close family, anything that will help them tell them more about themselves to their surrogate. And their letter as well, if they want to share just anything about what brought them to surrogacy, anything about their personal backgrounds, their careers, just anything about themselves they feel like they're want their surrogate to know. But yes, the video I think is ultimately just really special because you are hearing how they communicate, and I encourage them to really be as relaxed as possible. If they are someone who's really funny and has a good sense of humor, whether they're telling a joke on the call or laughing, like that's perfect. Like that's like, we want you to our surrogates to get a perfect sense of who they are, just a full picture. So we'll absolutely help them. I have done video calls with intended parents just to preview everything they've put together and give any type of recommendation. So we're absolutely happy to do that, and help as much as we can to make it the perfect profile for them.
Yeah, I love it. And I love reviewing profiles. I know we all get excited every time I create a surrogate profile. I send it to the case manager or six, so you can see not only the amazing surrogates that we have in our program, but also to think about who you think that they would match well with, because you get such a good sense of their personality reading those. And I know you guys also let us know every time an intended parent profile has been created and we all rush to read them. I know that's one of Haley's favorite things to do is reading intended parent profiles. It's just a good opportunity to really get to know these people who are looking for a surrogate to help create their family.
Yeah.
So
No.
I'm going to check your chat one last time and see if we have anything else. I don't see anything in there. So I think we'll go ahead and end it here. Thank you, Julie, for sharing so much information about what it looks like with the matching process coming from the attendant parent side, and then also with the surrogates because you work with them as well at that point. And I want to thank everybody for joining us today. If you have any questions about being a surrogate or want to learn more about surrogacy, please visit us at fairfaxsurrogacy.com or email us at info@fairfaxsurrogacy.com. We are happy to answer any questions you have. Thanks and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.